Don't you love how peach rings are rings and peachy?
So, I suck at starting these. I really do. Hi. So, one of my favorite games is a game called The World Ends With You, which is a morbid title, but it's for the DS. And like, if you asked me to make like a top 10 favorites, it would be like in my top 5, not even just like in games. I mean, like in like things like movies, films, books, whatever. It's up there. It's very important to me. And I just kind of want to talk about that for a little bit. I first discovered The World Ends With You in an issue of Nintendo Power. It was 2008. I was 15. And like, it's a magazine. It was a magazine for stuff relative to Nintendo. And like, that could be its own topic. I was going through one of these issues one day and it was talking about this
upcoming game
called The World Ends With You. It was like an article with some of the developers, an interview. It talked about the gameplay, the story, the yada yada. I just thought it looked really cool. So I was interested in playing it pretty quickly. And since I was a teenager with no money, that didn't happen right away. The game came out, I think, like later that month. But later that year, I did get my hands on it. And once I did, it was like an immediate click. The World Ends With You is an RPG, and that stands for role-playing game. And that's as vague of a descriptor as it gets. It is such a horrible way to describe something. Second only in genre names, it is beaten by Metroidvania, which doesn't describe anything. It truly doesn't. At least role-playing game is like describing a game. Very vaguely, but it's doing it. Go up to like a random person on the street, you say Metroidvania, they would probably think Transylvania, and they just thought you were having like a weird tongue twister moment or something. What am I talking about? So the game takes place in Shibuya, which is based off the real world location of Shibuya in Japan. And I don't mean based on in a loose sense, like Pokémon. Pokémon tends to these days like base their new regions off of like real world locations. This region right here, this is based off of France. And throughout the game, it's implementing like a lot of that aesthetic, and that's cool, but it's not like a one-to-one France. Whereas in The World Ends With You, this Shibuya is a lot more of a one-to-one representation. It's pretty dang accurate. Like I can look at lots of real world locations and match them with their in-game counterparts, even down to like where they relatively are in relation to each other. Heck, even like opening up Google Maps and just playing around for a while, I can get places and I kind of know where I'm going. I think it's cool that the game uses this as like a backdrop. It gives the game an interesting feeling of being grounded, because like this is like an actual place I could go, and not in like a theme park way, but like I could actually go to this place and experience the culture firsthand for myself. And the game does like a lot. It's a stylized version, obviously. It's got these people wandering around everywhere and all this artwork and neon signs, and just like there's so much going on at all times. And like you can read the thoughts of people. You can read the thoughts of all these random people who have nothing to do with the plot. Like they're like worrying about like pop star admiration. I hate these shoes. Hunk. And it makes the whole world feel like a lot more alive. And that's what I like about this. This game is an RPG, and RPGs typically consist of like 3 things: stats, a story, a world to get lost in. And I think this game has a great world to get lost in. I often find myself just walking around. There's no way to like quickly travel from place to place. You have to walk there. This isn't that big of a map. Like you can get through the whole thing in like 5 minutes. But still, it really feels like I'm walking around in like this city, and like, it's just nice. So, do I have to talk about the game? Do I usually talk about the game in this series? I don't know. This game is pretty cool. its style, its characters, the characters having different portraits for different emotions, the music, the gameplay. Like, I struggle to show what this is without spoiling what it is, you know? But that's me. Like, I like to go into things as blind as I can. Like, ideally, if someone recommends me something, I just want that. I don't want a trailer, I don't want a blurb, I don't want a plot. I just want someone to be like, I think you'd like this, here's like the genre, and that's it. I don't get anything out of like a teaser, I guess. It doesn't help sell me on it. Oh, I guess it can. I shouldn't be that, you know, arrogant. What am I talking about? I saw this game in Nintendo Power and I thought it looked cool. And are my videos here to sell people in something? Not necessarily. You know, this isn't like a review where I'm like trying to get someone into playing a game. But I would like for people to try this game out. So maybe I'm just putting too much pressure on myself. But it's a cool game. It is. It's such a cool game. The artwork, I'm gonna try to do it again. So, the characters. I enjoy all these characters. They're all so bold and expressive. Like, in a lot of games with portraits, they just change the face and call it a day, which I get no disrespect if that's the method used. But in this game, they tend to change their whole pose. Most of the main characters have a good range of these emotions. And, you know, it just kind of sells the character a little bit better. And yeah, there's a soundtrack. It's bumping. It's got a good range of genres. Blew my mind as a kid. And it's like pretty clear for a DS game. Like, I've been playing I think music off of like the CD. On the DS, it sounds kind of more like this. Which is still good. I don't know. I think it has a charm to it. The gameplay, it's like walking around, but there's battles and that combat. Pretty wacky. I've tried to explain it. It's not too hard to explain, but I suck at explaining it. Basically, there's things going on both the top and the bottom screen. The player has to keep attention to both things that are happening. It can be kind of hectic, but it's pretty kinetic once, you know, the hang of it is gotten. And the story, besides hitting some of my my personal chords, I think these characters are fun. I think this is a fun world to play in. I don't think I've emphasized that enough. Maybe that's what I meant. I think this game is fun. I think this game emotionally resonates with me, right? But I also think it's just a fun game to play. That's it. That's the missing part. This chair is so creaky. Just got done recording this whole part on my camera, right? Then I put it into my computer and the whole thing was corrupted. I had to format the whole card. There's other videos on there that I think I showed that are probably... But I've been meaning to clean out this memory card anyway, so I guess this works. It's annoying, but whatever. Anyways, in 2008, I was 15, and this game takes place around 2008, might be 2007, but the main character is also 15. His name is Neku, and he kind of goes through it, and I'm really lousy describing plots, but basically the story of The World Ends With You. It starts off with this kid who wants nothing to do with the world. He doesn't like interacting with other people. He doesn't want to socialize. He doesn't really care what they have. He just wants to be left alone, and that's it. That's all he wants. And the game challenges that. The whole story, Neku's belief in being alone is better, isolating himself. And right off the bat, Neku really is a jerk. The person who he spends the most time with in this game is Shiki, who is warm, outgoing, and friendly, the total contrast of Neku's cold, prickly energy. And Shiki often gets the cold shoulder when she tries to communicate with Neku, often putting up walls or just being a jackass to her and really everyone around him, because he thinks the world is better when it's just him. But the events that happen constantly challenge that belief by what happens in the story, the conflicts he goes through, the people he meets, how their views clash with his, and what happens to the people around him. Neku's perspective on the world is confronted. The story of The World Ends With You truly is just about changing your perspective and, well, hang on. The thesis? I don't know what that word means. I got a degree. I still don't know what that word means. But basically, the idea that The World Ends With You shares is that the world is a much bigger place when you interact with other people and get to learn them better. They have a different worldview than just you alone. And a world with just you alone is a pretty small world to live in. And Neku is an angsty teenager. I was an angsty teenager, so I was able to relate to what he was going through to an extent. I could relate to what he was feeling. That's a better way of putting that. Like, I wasn't at peak angst at 15, but like I was getting there, you know? And I feel like playing this game, you know, broadened my horizons a little bit. Like, it didn't like automatically change me because I was a teenager, but I feel like after this game I started being more insightful maybe of what I was engaging with when it comes to art. I don't know. But I found it so like moving. It really grabbed me. And like I played it again recently to jog my memory a bit. And I only meant to play it for like maybe like a couple hours, but I ended up playing throughout the whole game. And that was great. It was still a blast to play. And its story still resonated with me like 15 years later. So I think that's worth something. You know, I just got done reading Catcher in the Rye as well, another story that features a kind of angsty, misanthropic, is that how you pronounce that word? Teenager. And I also could relate to that. You know, I'm in a much better headspace. I'm much healthier these days, but I can see the angst and I can recognize who I once was. And who I once was someone who didn't really have much of an identity at that point. I was just kind of copying what I saw, but not really thinking about it. I was trying to figure out who I was. But with The World Ends With You, I was able to see myself in something. I was able to see a character, see a story, relate, and have it sync up with me. And I think that was really important for me as a teenager. Like, this is one of my favorite games. It's truly one of my favorite pieces of art. If you want to be that kind of person, which I kind of am, but I really love this game. And I think if I had played it for the first time today, I would still feel that, well, I would still enjoy it. I would still sing its praises. It's such a cool, weird little game. It's a truly one of a kind. But I think the thing that makes it just a tick over the edge, which makes it one of my favorite things, what makes it like a core aspect of who I am, is that I played this game at the right time in the right place. I think if I had played it sooner, I wouldn't have gotten it. Played it later, it might not have, you know, made as much of an impact. And I think that's a perfectly valid reason to love something. Yeah, I guess that's maybe where I should end things. Thanks.